Hello, so this is just a very quick introduction to the garden festivals, which of course carried the expertise and technical skills that we'd learned as a practice on the reclamation projects. And so in this session, we've got Hal, who's going to talk about the vision, and then Robert, who's going to talk about, Robert Holden, who's going to talk about garden festivals generally, and then some reflections from Neil Chapman, who actually worked on the Liverpool Garden Festival site. Now, it's probably no surprise that I'm doing the introduction as a Scouser. The first garden festival was in Liverpool. Brian's a Scouser. And anyhow, we're going to sort of hear the story in that. And I think Hal's got a really amazing introduction for this. I don't know if Robert and Neil want to just sort of sit somewhere so they can get to the slide after half.
It was LI Council policy around 1980 to promote garden festivals. But it was Brian, my presidential successor, 1981 to 83, who achieved this. When in July 1981, riots broke out in Toxteth, a tense, deprived area of Liverpool, the government had little idea what to do. Brian, who I think had a Liverpool office at that time, asked me to join him at a hastily arranged meeting, to which he had somehow tempted the Right Honourable Michael Heseltine, Secretary of State for Environment, recently also Minister for Merseyside, to attend. We met in a small office, and I do not recall others in attendance. Brian, in his characteristically blunt and imaginative manner, suggested that an excellent policy to benefit the area would be to have a garden festival near Toxteth. When the Secretary of State demurred, and while I was articulating support for such a project, Brian produced a drawing showing an actual suitable, available derelict site beside the Mersey River. The meeting was brief. A day or two later, Heseltine announced his brilliant idea of upgrading the area of Liverpool near Toxteth by holding a garden festival there, to be opened in spring 1984, less than 3 years away. Now, one of Brian's strengths is producing a splendid idea with a suitable person to run with it, in this case, myself. And so, on November the 10th, 1981, as a member of the Garden Exhibition Steering Committee in the Liver building, I was insisting that a landscape architect's master plan was the only hope of achieving this crazy timetable.
Toxteth riots. After the decision, one, to create the Merseyside Development Corporation, so there was an executive body already in place. These were, I think, in July 1981. Merseyside Development Corporation was set up along with other development corporations, basically transferring to inner cities a model developed for the British new towns. The other element was that there was money around. There was a national policy of derelict land funding. And this was a question of concentrating that derelict land funding. And then third, experience, as already described, of land reclamation. So this was the problem site. About 100 hectare, what's that, 240 acres or so in Dingle. Herculaneum dock, which had closed, I think, 72. Petrochemical tanks in this area, which have been removed. The land is polluted. And landfill. The one good thing was that we had the River Mersey, and we also had Otterspool Promenade. We say we. I was nothing to do with it. I'm just commenting. But Clouston's. Next slide. And this is the landfill. I understand that Brian had been commissioned to run the feasibility study for the garden festival, and the Toxteth riots probably pushed the decision to go ahead with Toxteth, but it was part of a programme of garden festivals. Next slide. So this shows it during the festival, very, very quick. The Dutch take 10 years to produce their Floriade. The Germans take 10 years to produce their Bundesgarten show. And this shows just after, this is 1982, in the winter. It shows the land modelling done by Brian's firm with the clay capping and then topsoil on top, or soil materials on top, not necessarily all topsoil. And that shows it in 1993. Post-Garden Festival, it's been problematic in Liverpool, as with many of the other garden festivals. But the point was that this was part of a national programme. So Liverpool, to get 3 points, nobody went to Liverpool. Certainly when I lived in Litherland in 59 to 61. Incidentally, Brian, I have travelled on the Liverpool Overhead Railway. I'm not a Liverpudlian, I come from north of Liverpool. We went on a school trip. 3.5 visitors, basically tourists, to the Garden Festival. That's a real achievement. But the longer term achievement is basically it's levelling up. All these garden festivals achieved big numbers of visitors. I think at this point, next slide, we can hand over to Neil, who was personally involved in the garden festival.
Thanks, Robert. Thank you, Robert. I've been asked to just say a few words about the legacy. I arrived very late to this game, I'm afraid. I turned up in Liverpool in 1984 on a train from Huddersfield, where I was working in the Huddersfield studio. At the time, there was piles of mountains of rubbish in the streets. The Strand was absolutely caked with this stuff. This was due to all the strikes that were going on in the town at the time. We were on the top floor of the Cunard building, which was just a sea of parquet. This is prime real estate in the middle of Liverpool on the waterfront. There was ourselves and Richard Cass's studio on the floor and a tiny little print outlet, and that was it. So, in terms of the legacy, I think there's three aspects to it, really. There's the site itself, there's the impact on the profession and the industry, and also there's the impact on Liverpool itself. And I think certainly in terms of the impact on the site itself, let's be generous, it's still a work in progress, unfortunately. As part of Hal's story, I do remember clearly a couple of beautiful sketches that Clive McWilliams produced, one showing the site with a garden festival, but critically, one showing the after use. And this showed a vibrant mixed-use community with river frontages and park open spaces. This has not yet been achieved. In fact, June this year, Liverpool City Council put out an advert for a master planning team, project manager led, to produce a vibrant riverfront community on the garden festival site. So let's be generous. Liverpool loves a party. Right, and it loved the garden festival. It really took it to heart. It was a game changer for the town. It was one of Hal's and Heseltine's 10 great projects, and as a result, I think it was a flagship. It did so much to boost the confidence of the community, to give them back a bit of self-pride. I loved the place so much I stayed. I'm not a Scouser, I'm a Yorkshireman, but there you go. In terms of the institute and the profession, again, it was a game changer. No doubt about it. It was a game changer. That scale and ambition had not been seen before. It certainly gave the industries themselves a new lease of life in a great shop window. And then for Liverpool, well, what shall we say? It gave it that confidence I've talked about. But also, I think the best way to sum it is I now work on the waterfront. I've got a practice in the Port of Liverpool building. And a good friend of mine from the northeast said he's a reclamation consultant. He said he's coming down to Liverpool to cycle from Albert Dock to Leeds city centre along the canal. He stayed overnight in the Albert Dock. He hadn't been in Liverpool since 1980. And he said, "Do you fancy a cup of coffee?" I said, "I'll meet you downstairs." I went outside onto the waterfront. It was buzzing. He said, "Neil, this is fantastic. What a transformation." He said, "I'll tell you what, it feels like Barcelona." And he wasn't referring to the weather. but I knew exactly what I meant as a reclamation and regen professional. He was talking about the vibrancy and the life that had been brought there. Now, it wasn't just to do with 1980s. There's a lot of things have happened since. 2008, City of Capital Culture, no doubt about it, gave Liverpool a lift, as did the regeneration of Liverpool 1, reconnecting the Albert Dock with the city centre. But there's no doubt about it. That started in the early 80s with Heseltine's project, the flagship of which was the Garden Festival site.
Thank you, Neil. So just a short coda on garden festivals. But in the early 80s, no, mid-80s, we were commissioned by the London Docklands Development Corporation to do a master plan for a garden festival in the London Docklands. Sadly, it didn't get built. Glasgow was considered to be a more worthy place to build one. They were probably right. But just to show that, in fact, I think for every one that was built, there were master plans done by landscape architects for others. So it had a widespread effect on the profession.